we are right now is 70 miles inside the United States. He brought us here. This is known as a debris field. And behind me, you can see this is where Sinaloa cartel specifically is not bringing people. This is where fentanyl, methamphetamine, and other harsh drugs are coming. And this is a drop location. Now, we interviewed the sheriff. Here's what he had to say about how crime is escalating and how law enforcement is being affected in this country right now.
And, you know, I'm looking at these mountains over here off to our left. I guess, you know, in Texas, we have scouts. They are everywhere. We call them falcons or lookouts. Yeah. Do y'all call them the same thing? And are they as prevalent where they literally are checking on shifts just like law enforcement? And are they, or do they stay in bed longer? What is their tactic like? What is their day in, day out as a scout that's operating against you and your people every day? How do they operate day in, day out?
And that's a great question, Jason, because we actually do have scouts. We call them scouts. They typically will stay up in the mountains for about 2 weeks at a time.
Do they really?
Yeah. They have enough resources. They have firearms, batteries for their radios, food, water, and they have enough to stay up there for a couple of weeks at a time. You can see how big these mountains are. You can't just go up and down these things over and over again. What we started doing is we were the first county in this country. We went to the feds and said, and this was back in the mid or late 2000, 2008, 2010. Yeah. We went to the feds and said, hey, you need to do something about this. Well, the federal the attorneys would not take the cases. So we actually got the county attorney to start charging them stateside under a conspiracy charge. We did up a historical. We showed how their part played in trafficking drugs and humans into this country. And we were the first county in the country to have successful
fantastic
of scouts in the mountains. What's unique about where we're at in my county is those scouts are not there just for the law enforcement. They're there for the RIP crews more than the law enforcement. And the RIP crews are the drug dealers that come from Phoenix to steal the drugs from those bringing the drugs across.
So
they'll rip humans and they'll rip drugs.
Interesting.
If you can rip them and take them up to a house and stick 5 bodies in there and make them pay another $2,500 or $3,000 before you release them, and you take their drugs as well.
Yeah.
So we've had to deal with a lot of RIP crews down here, and the scouts are just as much for them as they are for law enforcement.
Yeah, and that's just a great example there. I want to say one other thing about the sheriff. He truly gets that what is happening here affects every American. And he talks specifically about fentanyl and how the fentanyl problem is causing overdoses, not only here. We're at record number overdose deaths in this country, according to CDC. And take a listen to what he has to say about fentanyl reaching the American people.
Sheriff, what's happening here? It's not just affecting you and your own citizens. And I don't believe that story is truly understood. This border issue affects every American. But for some reason, that story's not being told. I would ask you, as someone who is in the fight every day down here, you talked about fentanyl and how it's impacting your citizens. You've talked about the level of Sinaloa activity and tradecraft affecting you. But you also have mentioned how all these drugs pass through and they go to communities all over this country, affecting Americans all over this country. What is something that you think they're not quite really being told or understood to the level of how that's affecting them and their families?
The biggest thing is this is an America problem. It's that simple. It's an America problem, not Arizona problem, not Texas problem, not a White House problem. This is an America problem, and it's going to take the American people to fix it. And that's why I'm doing my part as a sheriff. You're out here doing your part, which I appreciate. There are Americans clamoring every day for a path, for a direction that they can go to help us achieve saving our communities. So I think more than anything is people need to understand that this is an American problem. And I can tell you, as a sheriff, I'm committed to fighting this. And I know that other sheriffs are standing with me to fight against this. And I know that the majority of the American people are with me as well.
The sheriff, I will tell you, he gave us 4 hours of an exclusive interview with NewsMax. And for a sheriff who is in charge of over 600 employees in a county the size of Connecticut, it was a great, we were really appreciative that he gave us the time that he did. But I will tell you, it's very dangerous out here. We are just outside right now of the reservation, and we are watched, no doubt. So that's why he was with us out here. And also, you may have noticed he was armed at the same time.
Yeah. You know, some of this activity goes on at night. How do they deal with that?
It does. We were out with them both day and night. Last night with civilians. And I'll tell you, that was almost another story in and of itself. While we came here to expose Sinaloa cartel operations in this county 70 miles from the border, what we were really stunned by is how many private citizens, so frustrated with the lack of federal government support, have now risen. And I mean spending tens of thousands of dollars in night vision capabilities and technology and thermal imaging to be able to counter the cartel's capabilities, because I think a lot of people probably believe that these cartels are just walking people through. That is not how it works. And we learned that firsthand from Sheriff Lamb. There is true tradecraft involved. And when I say tradecraft, I mean they're using technology that allows them to communicate almost across the state and back into Mexico on two-way handheld encrypted radios. And then they embed themselves in these mountains for more than a week at times. So it just goes to show the level of tradecraft that civilians and both law enforcement are up against, but also that what happens here affects the American people all over this country, and even citizens are doing everything they can to stop it.
Yeah.